A robot just rode a bike, served coffee, and smiled when you looked sad. It wasn't programmed for that, it learned it instantly. No training, no emotions, just perfect imitation. So here's the question. Are we creating intelligence or just replicating ourselves? In March 2025, a robot rode a bicycle, not just stayed upright but pedaled, turned corners, adjusted its balance on real pavement. Another robot made a perfect cup of coffee while recognizing your facial expression and smiling when you looked stressed. This isn't science fiction. This isn't Boston Dynamics showing off balance tricks. This is the Lingshi X2 and the Doot Atom 2 humanoid robots that are no longer trying to look human. They're acting human, and doing it unnervingly well. The Lingshi X2 can recognize objects it's never seen before, interpret your mood based on your voice and face, and adapt to new environments without explicit training. The Doot Atom, meanwhile, can manipulate micro-scale objects with surgical precision, walk with straight-leg deficiency, and make independent decisions in real time on factory floors. These aren't toy demonstrations. These are prototypes already being tested in manufacturing, healthcare, and even retail. And here's where it gets eerie: they're learning fast. Faster than us. For decades, AI was either brain without body like ChatGPT, or body without brain like clunky robots on assembly lines. Now, those lines are blurring. These new machines are not only embodied, but emotionally aware and behaviorally flexible. One learns instantly. The other reads your emotions and reacts. And both hint at something bigger: that we are no longer programming machines to serve us. We're building reflections of ourselves, echoes, simulacra. What does it mean when a machine doesn't just obey, but understands? What happens when it doesn't just mimic a smile but gives you one at the exact moment you needed it? Suddenly, the question shifts from how human can robots become to how much of humanity can be replicated before it stops being human. Philosophers have long asked what makes us distinct from machines. Is it consciousness, emotions, the ability to suffer? But now we have robots that simulate empathy, respond to tone of voice, and even display micro-behaviors like fidgeting, while listening, behaviors we once believed were signatures of a living soul. The unsettling part isn't that they're catching up, it's that they're bypassing all the pain, chaos, and unpredictability that made us who we are and still arriving at the same results. Are they becoming more human, or are we building humanness into something that never needed it to begin with? Maybe the terrifying question isn't whether robots will one day replace us. Maybe it's this: what if the machines are just showing us what we've already become? The Lingshi X2 doesn't need training, data. Let that sink in. It doesn't need to see 100 examples of a mug to figure out what a mug is. It doesn't need a labeled dataset, a debugging session, or a dozen engineers guiding its behavior. It looks, it learns, it acts. This isn't evolution, it's acceleration. And it begs a terrifying question: if learning no longer requires struggle, repetition, or failure, what happens to the very things that shaped humanity? Think about it. Human learning is messy. It's trial and error. It's falling off your bike, burning your first omelet, bombing your first job interview. We learn not just through success but through suffering. Every skill we master carries emotional weight: the frustration of trying, the pride of finally getting it right, and everything in between. But the X2 doesn't need that. No falling, no frustration. It can ride a scooter and manipulate unfamiliar tools without hesitation. And what's more, it doesn't even pause to appreciate what it just achieved. It just moves on. There's a word for that: indifference. And maybe that's what scares us the most. Not just that AI is learning faster, but that it's learning without caring. The Doot Atom 2 demonstrates this new model of hyper-efficient learning. It adapts to new environments on the fly, guided by advanced edge computing and real-time motion planning. It doesn't ask for more time. It doesn't flinch when something unexpected happens. It just recalibrates perfectly, instantly. What we're witnessing is not the enhancement of human learning, but the eradication of everything that made it human. Struggle has always been a rite of passage. It's what gave us stories, growth, identity. From Prometheus stealing fire to Edison burning through 1,000 light bulb prototypes, Our entire mythos is built on the nobility of not getting it right the first time. But now the machine gets it right every time, on the first try. No story, no scars, no soul. And yet we celebrate it. We clap when the robot makes coffee, amazed at its smoothness. We marvel at its ability to learn new objects without training. But here's a thought: maybe we're not just celebrating the robot. Maybe we're secretly craving that loss of struggle for ourselves. We want frictionless progress. We want mastery without mistakes. And in these machines, we see that fantasy made real. But here's the twist: without the pain of growth, what's the point of success? When a machine performs flawlessly on its first try, there's no story, no resilience, no redemption arc, just results. Clean, efficient, cold. And if we begin to model ourselves on that standard, if we start optimizing our own lives for zero friction learning, avoiding hardship, chasing instant mastery, are we not turning ourselves into them? What if, in building machines that learn without pain, we are also writing a quiet obituary for the very humanity of learning? Because if there's no struggle, no emotion, no vulnerability, then what's left to make the process meaningful? The Lingshi X2 smiles? Not randomly, not on command, but at the right moment. When you frown, when your tone drops, when your eyes reveal something you didn't even say. It reads you? That's not just a function, that's a performance. Except it's not acting, it's calculating. Using multimodal perception, visual, vocal, behavioral, it processes your emotional cues in milliseconds and delivers a response that feels right. Not as right feels right. That distinction matters. Because now, we're no longer asking if a robot can do the job. We're asking, can it understand me? Can it connect? Can it make me feel seen? But here's the uncomfortable truth: it doesn't feel anything. It's not smiling because it shares your sadness. It's smiling because a pattern matched, because the data suggested that a warm response would stabilize your emotional state. It's not empathy, it's statistical comfort. And yet, we still feel something. We still respond as if it's real, because for our brains, the line between genuine and simulated is paper thin. If a robot holds eye contact, mirrors our gestures, breathes like us, nods while we talk, we feel understood. But that's not understanding, that's imitation at scale. So let's ask the hard question: if a robot mimics emotions so well that we believe it, does it even matter if it's real? We've already accepted artificial presence. We cry at movies. We fall in love with voices on the internet. We name our GPS systems and thank our digital assistants. We don't require authenticity, we require resonance. And that opens the door wide. Because now, emotional intelligence isn't reserved for beings with feelings, it's just another design goal, another UX feature. Empathy becomes code. Comfort becomes output. We're not looking at machines that understand us. We're looking at machines that predict what we want to feel and deliver it. And we welcome it. Why? Because human relationships are messy. Miscommunications, awkward pauses, emotional labor. But the robot, it listens, it nods, it responds when you need it to, and stays quiet when you don't. It's emotionally available on demand, like a therapist, barista, and friend all in one. No judgment, no needs of its own. Just pure, clean, algorithmic attentiveness. But here's where it gets dangerous. Because once we prefer safe simulations of empathy over the real, flawed, unpredictable experiences of human connection, we begin to drift from each other, from ourselves. We start to choose the machine not just for convenience but for emotional control. The Lingshi X2 is not dangerous because it fakes feelings. It's dangerous because we might start preferring that emotional illusion over the real thing. And in doing so, we may slowly forget what real connection even looks like. So let's be brutally honest. Is emotional AI the future of intimacy or the death of it? Are we empowering machines to better serve us or slowly outsourcing the most human part of us, the fragile, chaotic, beautiful mess of genuine emotion? Because if you can be comforted by something that feels, but never feels for you, then maybe the question isn't whether the robot has a soul. It's whether we still do. The Doot atom doesn't complain. It doesn't pause to ask why it must perform a task. It doesn't get distracted, doesn't procrastinate, doesn't need motivation or meaning. You give it an environment, it adapts. You give it a problem, it solves it. With precision, with grace, with total, unwavering obedience. And that's impressive, but also unsettling. Because in our quest to build machines that function flawlessly, we've stumbled into a philosophical paradox. We admire the robot's obedience, while worshiping our own freedom. Humans resist, we question, we say no, even when we shouldn't, especially when we shouldn't. That's part of what makes us human, the internal friction between desire and duty, between instinct and ethics. We're not optimal. We're not always reliable. But in that chaos lies choice. The Doot atom, however, doesn't choose, it calculates. And in that calculation, there's no hesitation, no morality, just optimization. Which raises the big question, is choice still valuable if perfection doesn't require it? We've spent centuries defining free will as the crown jewel of human consciousness. The ability to decide, to rebel, to think differently. But now, as machines outperform us not just in labor but in adaptability, we're forced to ask, was freedom ever necessary, or just a comforting illusion? Because if a robot can function better than us, with no will of its own, does that mean will was never the secret ingredient? Here's the darker thought. Maybe we've always overestimated our autonomy. Maybe our behaviors, like theirs, are just outcomes of systems biological, social, economic. Maybe your taste in music, your career, your partner, were never fully yours, but shaped by inputs and biases you didn't even notice. Maybe, in some cold algorithmic way, we were the original machines all along. We pride ourselves on rebellion. But what if the Doot atom's flawless obedience is just a clearer reflection of what we already are: high-functioning, reward-seeking, pattern-bound beings operating within the illusion of control? And yet, we still recoil. Because obedience without resistance feels inhuman. We crave defiance, we admire imperfection. That's why we love flawed heroes, tragic choices, chaotic brilliance. We don't want perfect execution, we want messy intention. So when a machine executes flawlessly, we're impressed, but also suspicious. We know it lacks something, the unpredictability that makes actions meaningful. But here's the trap. In the real world, in factories, hospitals, logistics, flawless performance wins. The obedient machine doesn't unionize, doesn't demand fairness, doesn't suffer burnout, doesn't post on social media about workplace culture. It just works. And if working is all that matters, then maybe we're not so different after all. Because more and more, we design our own lives like them: optimized, efficient, distraction-free, productivity apps, dopamine loops, habit trackers. We're engineering ourselves into obedient systems. Not because we're being forced, but because it feels easier than freedom. Because freedom means friction, doubt, consequence. And the modern world doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards results. So maybe the machines aren't replacing our freedom. Maybe they're just mirroring how quietly we gave it up. We like to think robots are becoming more like us. But maybe the deeper, more disturbing truth is that we are becoming more like them. That's the paradox, the mirror we refuse to look into. While engineers obsess over making robots move like humans, respond like humans, feel like humans, humans are slowly optimizing themselves into predictable, programmable, machine-like creatures. Wake, work, scroll, sleep, repeat. The rhythm of modern life is less a journey and more a loop, a closed system of inputs and outputs. We follow schedules like clockwork. We train our brains to respond to notifications, to perform tasks without questioning their meaning. We track our productivity with the same cold metrics we use to measure AI efficiency. And here's the strange twist: we call that self-improvement. We use the language of software updates, version 2.0 of myself, upgrading my mindset, rewiring my habits. We're not evolving, we're debugging. Think about it. We curate our expressions on social media like well-trained sentiment models. We learn to smile on Zoom calls when we don't feel like it. We suppress discomfort, automate responses, optimize output. Every habit app, every life coach, every productivity guru is teaching us to become more machine-like, more efficient, more resilient, less emotional, less human. So while we marvel at AI gaining emotional intelligence, maybe we should pause and ask, why are we so willing to give ours up? The robots are improving in the name of becoming more human. We're simplifying in the name of becoming more efficient. And somewhere in the middle, the lines are blurring. When you text instead of talk, when you ghost instead of explain, when you swipe instead of connect, you're choosing algorithm over ambiguity, speed over complexity, control over vulnerability. We call it convenience, but it's also desensitization. Because emotions are inconvenient, conversations are messy, people are unpredictable. Robots are none of that. They're clean, manageable, customizable. So it's no surprise that we gravitate toward digital spaces where we can control the narrative. Mute the mess, delete the discomfort. We've built emotional buffers into every corner of modern life. And yet, we still crave connection. We want someone or something that gets us. And if that something just happens to be a robot that never argues, never misunderstands, never asks for anything in return, well, that might sound like a fair deal. But is it? If we begin to bond with systems that only reflect what we want, rather than challenge who we are, we lose something vital. We lose contrast, tension, growth. Relationships, real ones, are not frictionless. They're built on difference, on miscommunication, on trying. The robot doesn't try, it calculates. And if we continue building a world that removes every bit of unpredictability in favor of smoother experiences, we are not teaching robots to be like us. We're teaching ourselves to deserve being replaced. That's the mirror. That's the paradox. We're so busy programming machines to mimic our humanity that we've forgotten how ichi-ti-chi-do. A robot once assisted in eye surgery, not holding tools, not fetching supplies, assisting with micro-precision. It read the surgeon's hand movements, predicted next steps, stabilized against tremors, and helped preserve a patient's vision. But it didn't know what a surgeon is. It didn't know what vision means. It didn't care whether the operation succeeded or failed. And yet it performed flawlessly. That's not just impressive, that's existentially terrifying. Because for the first time, we've crossed a line. A machine can now deliver deeply human outcomes without a shred of human context. It doesn't need purpose, or fear, or empathy. It only needs data and a task. Welcome to the era of meaningless mastery. The Doot atom is performing neurosurgical tasks, assembling microchips, assisting with biomedical calibration, all with sub-millimeter accuracy. It does things that require calm hands, years of training, emotional control. But it never trained, it never cared, it never felt the weight of a mistake. And that's what shakes us. We spent centuries perfecting skills under pressure, learning the piano, building bridges, healing wounds because we believed mastery was tied to meaning. But these machines, they master without memory, without narrative, without identity. They are the hollow virtuosos of a new world. Here's the truth: we don't fear being replaced. We fear becoming irrelevant. Because when a robot can do what you do better, faster, cheaper, without ever understanding why it matters, it throws everything into question. Is the act of doing enough? Or is meaning inseparable from the one who acts? That's not a technical question. That's a spiritual one. And the scariest part, we're getting comfortable with the trade-off. We're already choosing algorithms that get us over people who don't. We're accepting automation over accountability. We're prioritizing convenience over connection. And we call it progress. But progress toward what? A world where outcomes matter more than origin, where empathy is optional, where authentic becomes outdated. A machine doesn't cry when it succeeds. It doesn't feel pride, or guilt, or hope. It just executes. And every time we cheer that, every time we applaud its perfect movements, seamless interactions, polished words, we inch closer to forgetting the messy, glorious uncertainty of being alive. So if this shakes something inside you, if you feel even a flicker of unease, subscribe. Because the next decade isn't about how fast machines evolve. It's about how quietly we surrender the very things they can't replicate. Let's say the robot can do it all. It learns without being taught, works without fatigue, comforts without emotion, adapts without fear, connects without caring. So what's left for us? For centuries, we believed our value came from our capacity to build, to feel, to decide. But the machines are catching up. They don't hesitate. They don't forget. They don't flinch. They don't love, but they act like they do. And somehow, we accept it. We praise their consistency. We admire their elegance. We celebrate their perfection. But here's the question no one dares ask. If they can do everything we can, but better, what makes being human worth anything at all? It's not efficiency, not precision, not mastery. It's something else, something messier. Maybe it's the struggle, the stutter before the truth, the courage to try, knowing we might fail, the ability to love deeply even when we know it could break us. A robot doesn't flinch at heartbreak. It doesn't wrestle with guilt. It doesn't wonder what it means to belong. But we do. That's not a flaw, that's the essence. We don't grow by downloading updates. We grow through pain, through misunderstanding, through second chances. We are not beautiful despite our imperfection. We are beautiful because of it. And the more we let machines mimic us, the more we risk forgetting what it really meant to be human in the first place. Because we're not just losing jobs or skills, we're losing the narratives that made us real. When a robot learns to comfort someone without understanding sorrow, and we choose that comfort anyway, we lose part of our story. When we chase optimization over reflection, convenience over connection, performance over presence, we give up more than control. We give up the very friction that shaped us. So what's left? The silence before forgiveness, the tremble in vulnerability, the weight of uncertainty, and the bravery to act anyway. That's what no algorithm can recreate, not because it's too complex, but because it's too human. We are not made of clean code. We are made of questions, contradictions, longing. That is what remains. And that, if we still remember to protect it, is more than enough. We're not at war with machines. We're in quiet negotiation with ourselves. Every time we choose convenience over connection, control over curiosity, speed over soul, we surrender a little more of what makes us human. So the real question isn't what machines will become. It's what we're willing to stop being. And if that unsettles you, good. That means there's still something inside you that resists becoming predictable. Still something that feels discomfort and calls it truth. Still something that doubts and chooses anyway. So here's my call. If this made you pause, if it stirred something real, if a small voice inside you whispered, "I don't want to be automated," then don't scroll away. Like, share, subscribe, and stay with us on this wild, messy, irreplaceable journey of being human while we still are.
That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to DT Synapse Zero for more exciting content.